What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to listen to Anime Society. We are a podcast that's going to bring you a little bit of talk about anime and manga, just everything that has to do with that culture. We are your hosts. I'm Hunter. This is Jonah.
My name is Jonah. What's good, guys?
Yeah, what's going on? Thank you for letting the people know. Jonah, you excited about this? I'm pretty excited about this little series that we're going
Dude,
to do.
I'm stoked, honestly. I mean, it's a life dream to be able to just discuss anime, theories, reviews, everything about this culture that we love so much.
Yeah, I know, and I'm so glad that the culture itself is really being embraced more here in the States, stateside, not just stateside as well, but in the Western Hemisphere, outside of Japan and outside of the Asian culture. It's really impressive, and it's another way to escape and get lost into some of the worlds that they create.
For sure. No, it's actually incredible the amount of growth that anime has had in the United States over, I mean, even the last 3 years. I mean,
Yeah.
you were hard pressed to find an anime style movie in theaters,
Right.
and now we had Your Name, Weathering with You. There are Naruto movies with the new My Hero Academia movie. I even saw an Arby's commercial with a Deku toy.
Yeah.
It's like it's crazy. It's crazy. Like I would have never guessed that it would have expanded this rapidly,
Mm-hmm.
this quick.
Yeah, and I think that's really a good thing as well, and especially for right now. I think this is a great time. Obviously, not a great time with the coronavirus, but it's a great time since everybody is able to stay at home now. If they've ever thought about getting into anime, there are obviously multiple ways that they can get into it with all of the different streaming websites out there. So I think this is a perfect time for people that are maybe scraping for content to watch, and they're looking for they're trying to decide, should I try and get into anime, or should I watch The Office for the 7th time? It's like, dude, you know what's happened already in The Office the first 6 times. There's nothing is going to change. Now, how about you go and find a new story to kind of delve into?
For sure. I think that's going to be one of the main elements of this podcast is, I don't want to say persuading, but at least
Mm-hmm.
offering to people the chance to delve into a world that they've never seen before.
Yeah.
It's like there are a lot of terrible things in the world, a lot of cool things that you can watch, a lot of cool worlds that are built. But as far as different fantasy worlds that I've plunged into, anime has the biggest worlds,
Mm-hmm.
the coolest backstories, incredible character building, and that's going to be something we're going to talk about later today in this podcast. Is
Yeah.
Why the Western world should embrace or continue to embrace, I guess, anime and manga and the culture as a whole, because I think people will start to realize what it has to offer.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I'm sitting here looking just basically, that's what I was going to say. That's like in today's episode, guys, this is basically just introduction. You're going to learn a little bit about me and Jonah, the hosts, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more on why the Western world should embrace anime. We're going to go a little bit in depth in that. We were hoping these podcasts aren't going to be super long, but it is going to give you something to listen to, whether you're at home just trying to kick back and relax right now, or if you're on a drive for a little bit. You can put us through your radio speakers, and you'll have that for us to keep you company on your drive. So let's just start with you, Jonah. How about you give a little bit of about you, about this? So we're gonna give our top 3 favorite titles, and the reason why we said titles is because there are some things that we prefer more in the anime version, and then there are some titles that we enjoyed more as the manga. And so it would be kind of unfair to say these are my top 3 anime, but the anime is not as good as the manga, and then vice versa. So we're just going to put this out here as our top 3 favorite titles. Is something that you just get to know about us and kind of get a feel for the genre that we like in anime. So Jonah, I'm going to let you go ahead and tell the people yours.
Right. So I guess first to start out, I've been following and watching anime pretty devoutly for the last, I don't know, 10, 12 years maybe.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, as a kid growing up in the States, the ones that I started with were, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh! Those were the Saturday morning cartoons that would come on. Later, you had Cartoon Network with Toonami, and they would play Dragon Ball Z, and eventually they got into Naruto, etc. So over the last 12 years, I've watched a lot of anime. I've read a ton of manga just because I'm impatient. And so if there is an anime that only has a few seasons but has a ton of chapters of manga, I'm not one to wait for the anime to release. I will just read the manga instead. And like Hunter was saying, so these are my top three titles. And honestly, it is really hard for me to pick a top three. But right now, I'm going to, I guess, attempt to break it down into three. So, my favorite title of all time is One Piece. I am the biggest One Piece stan you will ever meet. Granted, I have been very disappointed with the anime in years past. Just haven't felt like the animation studio has done very well. They haven't invested in the anime very much. Too much filler. Too many things are dragged out. But the manga is amazing. It's my favorite world, has some of my favorite characters. The whole thing's brilliant. Number two for me is Hunter x Hunter. And that one is honestly makes me a little bit sad because the writer Togashi, he has been battling an illness recently, so he hasn't been able to continue writing. I think the last chapter we got from Hunter x Hunter was almost 2 years ago. But that one is incredible. The characters are great. This idea of camaraderie and adventure in the story is just amazing. The power system is really cool. And then lastly, this one I think more Americans have been exposed to at least once in the past is Attack on Titan. And I was hesitant to put this one in there, but the anime is just so good. I have never watched a story. I have never watched any show or movie in my life that has perfected the art of the cliffhanger like Attack on Titan. Like, it is absurd. Every episode that you watch leaves you just speechless. Like, you want nothing more in the world than the next episode to come out. So those are my top three.
All right. My top three. So I'm going to go with number one to me is Seven Deadly Sins. And mostly it's because I did finish the manga, and it's one of those things where I think the ending kind of got a little bit wonky, but the story in between, leading up to the end, was fantastic. So I'm not going to give any spoilers for any of those that just want to continue to watch the anime, which is completely fine. But one of the main reasons as well for me Seven Deadly Sins is so high up there is because they've introduced you to such a slew of characters that they're just so, and the characteristics of them, their personalities are just so great. I fell in love with them in an instant. The first one that I fell in love with was Bon, and then season 2 when they introduced Escanor, and you're like, dude, holy crap, who is this? And then all of a sudden they introduce the new villains in season 2, and then I meet Estarossa, and he's ends up being one of my favorite villains. So it's just one of those things where more of the Seven Deadly Sins is like, first of all, I still think it does have a great core story. I think it really does. But two, it was all the characters. It's just one of those things where I fell in love with the characters. Number two is definitely something that I believe is on a lot of Western fans here. I think a lot of us enjoy this because we were able to see, part 1, and then we got to see the time skip that brought us Naruto Shippuden. Shippuden, to me, I think it is a huge jump ahead of Naruto. I really do. I think it was just so much better, and it helped that the animation obviously got so much better as the years went on. But that's another one where the storyline itself can be captivating, and it's another thing where you fall in love with characters, and I think that's something we'll get into when we start talking about why the Western world should embrace anime. It's just, so Shippuden for me, it was just the characters really and the storyline, kind of like the Seven Deadly Sins as well. And then my third, this one is like strictly anime, because first of all, Ufotable was fantastic, and everybody heard me say Ufotable, and they're probably thinking, who they're probably thinking that I'm talking about Demon Slayer, and no, I'm not. I think Demon Slayer's got potential to jump up there, absolutely, but I'm talking about the Fate series,
Sure.
and I'm talking about the first two series in the Fate series. I'm talking Fate Zero and Fate Stay Night. I thought those were amazing. Some people would like to throw probably Unlimited Blade Works in there as well. I consider it Stay Night. Like when I say Stay Night, I mean that and Unlimited Blade Works. So anything that has Shiro in it, I think that's great. And to me, like Archer, that character alone was fantastic. And that story, and I loved the fact that they brought the characters that they did and gave them kind of a historical connection to the real world by, kind of mixing them in with great kings and conquerors that have actually historically been recorded in real life, and then kind of just turned them into these, servants. And I thought it was just fantastic. So for me, it would have been Seven Deadly Sins, Naruto Shippuden, and the Fate series, Fate Zero to Fate Stay Night. So that's right. Our top three, and truthfully, I think there was a recurring theme between mine and yours when it comes to our top three, and I think now that we've kind of introduced our top three and have given the people kind of a look at like what genres we kind of lean to, and they can kind of think in their head like, oh, well, I could see why they like this, and obviously we gave examples. I think now we can kind of dive into why the Western world should embrace anime. And what I was getting at is mine and your animes that we've picked, they've kind of got this one thing in common, and it's basically how the, artist has painted this world, and it's just gorgeous, and it's we've fallen in love with the world, and then not only the artist, but of course, the writer himself just building these characters. So it's a little bit deeper than just looking at these and saying they got cool fight scenes, even though that plays a little bit of a part. We know it plays a little bit of a part, but it's just the story building that they've done.
Right. And both of us, I think all six of ours, your top three and my top three, are all, battle adventure stories.
Yeah.
And I think that generally that's going to be the most popular genre.
Right.
There are all anime as a medium is huge. I don't think people realize how massive it is. You have romance, you have comedy, you have slice of life stuff, you have horror, you have
hentai.
Action.
Wait.
we don't speak of that, man. We want to get monetized.
Okay, there we go. Go ahead.
But yeah, it's absolutely huge, and I think that what a lot of people in the Western world don't understand is that everyone can find their niche in the anime community.
Right.
It's like it's like any kind of entertainment media. You look at movies or TV shows. You have all kinds of different genres, and there's something out there for everyone. I think that's the beauty of the internet and the globalization of the world, is that depending on your interests, what you like, there is something out there for you. Right. There will be something in any given medium that you will enjoy and will be entertained by. And to close yourself off to an entire medium, to me, is just it's sad. It's a waste. It's you're missing out on the opportunity to find something that you really genuinely enjoy.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And you know what? I think one of the things that kind of turns people off from anime, and it's kind of sad, really, but it is the fact that it is in Japanese, a lot of it. And a lot of them, will sit there and say, I enjoy watching SpongeBob growing up. I enjoyed watching, Powerpuff Girls growing up. I enjoyed watching Ed, Ed, and Eddie. I know me and you had a conversation about how crazy they were the other day. So, and I can sit here and list all of these Western anime that you would just see on a regular televised show on Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and even Disney Channel, Mickey Mouse. And everybody can sit here and say that they love those cartoon characters, and then they look at the Japanese animation and they'll be like, they're just so turned off by it. And I don't think what they realize is, you might love SpongeBob, but there was no true storyline in SpongeBob. It was just, what the hell
yeah.
can he get into today?
Right.
But and then you look at anime, and there's a whole storyline there. Now, some of them might be a little wacky and wonky, and there doesn't really seem to be a storyline. But for the majority of them, or at least the ones that me and you listed, like the stuff that draws us together, the action and adventure ones, you know, the ones that do world building and storytelling, those are the ones that you could almost look at them and say, well, this isn't a cartoon, this is just a TV show, because this storyline might be better than your little Grey's Anatomy.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the thing is too is I feel like not only does the Japanese turn people off, and I think that's just an issue with America. I mean, I think there's in the United States there's kind of this widespread, whether people realize it or not, and I don't know if xenophobia is the right word, but there's this hesitancy to embrace anything foreign.
Yeah, it's you can almost say it's almost elitism. If it's not ours, it's like beneath us. It's like
Right. It's like
I'm
the
not
reason
really
why.
gonna care. Yeah.
Right. It's the reason why like we promote English to be so much like so far superior to any other language. You know, it's like Americans for the most part don't bother to learn a second language because
Right.
it's almost like it's beneath them, you know.
Right.
Whereas, I mean, for example, I lived in France for 2 years, and I had the opportunity to go to Luxembourg a few times, and those kids they are literally fluent in 4 languages by the time they're like 16, 17. It's
Right.
incredible. And it's like ingrained in the fabric of their society that we're going to take whatever we can around us and embrace it, take what's good about it and
Yeah.
embrace it and make it a part of our own culture, you know?
Mhm.
And I think that Americans have a hesitancy to that. And I do understand some of the reserves because, I mean, let's be honest, there is some weird crap in anime.
Oh,
You
I
know,
can
there are
agree.
some strange things. There are some really just like disturbing and, you know, I don't know how to explain it exactly, but you know what I'm saying? It's like there are
I
definitely some
don't
parts of the
think.
community that,
Yeah, I don't think anime does itself a service when like any commercial that a kid is watching and a mom sees it and it's just a big-breasted anime girl. And I don't think that really does them any service for that mom to just be
Right.
like, yeah, I'm gonna let you watch this show. Yeah, don't worry about the half-naked girl in the bikini that's getting ready to run around. I know she's animated, but still, no. I think they kind of do a
Right.
disservice when they do fan service to that extreme.
Right.
I mean,
For sure.
I'm not a hater though, but I mean that's beside the point.
Yeah, no, for sure.
That's beside the
And the thing is too is like even in the community,
Yeah.
there's kind of this stigma in the U.S. where if you like anime, like you're a weirdo. Like you know what I mean?
They
You're like
label you a weeb. It's okay. A weeb.
right. And I mean we're weebs.
We are
Honestly,
weebs.
I mean like
We're
I'll
weebs.
embrace the weeb, but like I mean there's a difference between a weeb who just really enjoys the medium and loves the story building and the world building and the characters, and then someone who is drawing, you know, tentacle porn and wearing a tail every day. You know what I mean? Like there's a massive difference between the two.
There's a
And,
big
and
difference.
honestly, though, like it's not a very well grounded argument just because, like I said, in any medium, you're going to have weird stuff like that. You know what I mean?
I
Like
agree.
in any kind of media or entertainment, there's going to be some weird, just gross, disturbing things.
Right.
And you just have to, you know, be wary of that and steer yourself towards the things that you know you're going to like and are going to be good, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that you have to realize when you are starting to watch anime is that it is going to be different. You know, if it's something that you've never seen before, you got to be able to have an open mind and say, hey, you know, this is going to be different. And just like any other TV show, if I can get through the first 2 or 3 episodes, which are like introductory, I think I'll be able to do this. But do you want to know what I think really has helped the embrace of anime in the society is the fact that some celebrities have made it clear that they watch anime. I know Chris Brown, the hip hop and R&B guy. Chris Brown, he is a huge anime fan. Michael B. Jordan, the actor, he was in Creed. He's a huge anime fan. So the more that Hollywood, Ninja is a huge anime fan. Anybody that's a streamer, seems to be an anime fan that likes as kind of a gamer. I'm just saying, like, it seems like when Hollywood and some of these other platforms are just open about what they enjoy, some people tend to really embrace it. And I know you can say that in kind of a good and a bad way, how society really tries to, like, whatever Hollywood likes, a lot of people will just hop on that bandwagon and like it. But if you're anime, something that's harmless and just enjoyable to watch, it's like, dude, why would we not try and root ourselves in Hollywood? Like, why would we not try and get into Hollywood, more? I think anime does a disservice, though, when sometimes they try and go the adaptation and make them the real life adaptations. I think that ruins it sometimes. So Hollywood needs to stay out of it in that form. But, like you said, in the past 3 to 5 years, you started to see more anime movies come out in theater. So I think it's great if anime can really root themselves into Hollywood and into the entertainment business, into the Western culture, because then it's just going to explode. Not that it hasn't already. I think it's still got a lot that it can continue to grow, but I think it'll explode, and then you'll start seeing more people artist-wise and more people that are creative-wise here in Western culture create their own kind of, you can't call it anime because it's anime is just, because it's in Japan, it's Japanese animation, but you'll see more of that art style being used and maybe that storytelling being used in, cartoons you see today.
Right. Yeah, and one of the examples I bring up is take something like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yes.
Like, is it anime technically? No. It's an animated cartoon, but I mean, anime is generally reserved for animation cartoons coming from Japan.
Yes.
That's generally what we reserve the term for.
Right.
But something like Avatar: The Last Airbender, while it's not anime, it doesn't have some of the same themes or I don't know, the different nuances or common themes that you see in Japanese anime. It still has an anime feel to it, with how the story is told, how the world is built. You have normally in all of these, battle adventure shows, you have some kind of power system that's in place, some kind of supernatural power system. And it has that. And Avatar: The Last Airbender was embraced to the maximum extent in the U.S. I mean, Americans loved that show.
I agree.
I mean, it's an amazing show, and there wasn't this, hesitancy towards Avatar: The Last Airbender because it was made in the U.S. It goes back again to, just because something has foreign origins, there's this, kind of wall, this barrier that people will put up a lot of times that keeps them from experience. Like, if Avatar: The Last Airbender was the same thing, like, take the exact same show and just say that it was based out of Japan, it was in Japanese, and you had subtitles, it would not have near the success it had, even though it's the exact same show.
I can agree with that. But what I was just going to say about that as well is, like, I think Avatar in itself really thrived with the fact that it was on, like, a major network and the accessibility that Avatar had. It was aired on Nickelodeon. Like, everybody that had at least cable television in America had Nickelodeon as one of the channels they could do. And I think maybe that is what hurts anime as well, is, until Toonami came around, or if you knew to watch on Saturday mornings growing up, to watch Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and of course Toonami with Dragon Ball, like, the accessibility is just really not as grand and not as easy as you would think. Like, I know there's Crunchyroll, I know there's Funimation, but those have paywalls unless you want to just watch for free. And then, of course, there was, for years, we used Kiss Anime, but if you want to risk getting 50,000 viruses, then go right ahead. I mean, that's on your computer. That's just what it is. So it's like, it's not, just an easy access. You kind of, if you don't know anything about it, I mean, Netflix kind of helps now, but even that's a paywall. It's a subscription based. So if you don't know anything about anime and it's not just there for you to easily access, then of course it's not going to gain any traction because you don't know where to look for it.
Right. And I think that's probably that's a good point, because it's probably another reason why in the last 3 to 5 years there's been a surge in anime popularity in the
Mm-hmm.
US. And I think that probably stems from the fact that a lot of people are switching from cable providers and
Yeah.
TV to streaming services.
Right.
It's like people are tired of having 300 channels. They don't use 250 of them,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to pay, $100+ a month just to keep all of
I
these.
agree.
They'd rather have a subscription service like Hulu Live or YouTube TV or Sling or whatever it is that they pay, $40 for, $20 for a month for all of their TV channels that they want.
Mm-hmm.
And then they buy a subscription to Netflix, or, you know what I mean, to get all of their movies and stuff. And as that switch happens, more people are exposed to anime because you have all of these mediums that are kind of lumped onto one site.
Yeah. I
It's a lot
agree.
easier to find anime on Netflix than it is on TV.
Oh, 100%. 100%. You just go up there to the search bar. You can even type in anime, and it'll just bring up results, that are close to anime. And I
Right.
think one of the reasons why I think we've established really why it's hard for the Western civilization to get into anime. I think now it's kind of like, well, now that we've got these listeners, we got these people in front of us, why should you embrace anime, And it's
Right.
one of those things I think that me and you can both agree on. It's, look, you can love your Grey's Anatomy all you want, but the storyline in some anime are a whole lot deeper and way more complex than your Grey's
Right.
Anatomy.
Oh, yeah.
And I get it if you're, a medical junkie and that stuff is what you like. More than likely, if you look hard enough, there will be a medical anime somewhere. I just guarantee it.
I guarantee there is.
I guarantee it. I just guarantee it, because I know my mother, she is obviously works in the medical field. My sister's studying to be in the medical field. They loved Grey's, but it's like, dude, if I could present to them an anime that can go in depth with the human body and just with what it can do animation wise and the story that they could write, oh my god, I think they would love it. They would love it.
Right. And the thing is too is even I think on a widespread scale, like you look at the anime that have had success in the US, right? Something
Yeah.
like Dragon Ball, the whole series, Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, whatever.
Yeah.
The whole Dragon Ball series, Naruto, My Hero Academia now is really gaining popularity.
I want you to think about that, though. Is that not crazy that Dragon Ball has so much success here, and really Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z's storyline was not great compared to everything else that we've seen? It's almost like it is legitimately the arc system. You just go through this arc, and then now we're going to tell you a different story. Like, it's not just one continuous long story journey that we're on, like a lot of the other ones. So I think that's pretty wild, and especially with how much popularity it still has.
Right, like there's no end game in Dragon Ball, right? Like it's just kind of like you have these mutually exclusive arcs where, new villain comes in, you get a power up, you defeat him, next arc,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But what the three of those have in common is they're all, these action, adventure, battle type anime, right? And the reason why I think those have so much success is America has a long history of embracing the superhero, superpower culture.
I agree.
Right?
100%.
I mean, and the thing is
look at how many Marvel movies we get every year. Like,
right. Superhero movies are huge. Batman, Superman, Iron Man, the Avengers. All these superheroes are massive. And even going back before they were made into movies and things, that you had comic books. So I think that Americans have already been exposed. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. Comic books are a lot like manga, besides the direction you read, and they're colored, right? But it is panel by panel, you have text dialogue and action scenes, and you kind of fill in the gaps with your imagination, Yeah. Manga's really similar. And America has embraced the superhero movie. I mean, Avengers, like the Avengers Endgame, those movies were like the number one grossing movies in the world. So it's
Right.
like there's already a passion that's been shown for things like that. And so I think that, I mean, when I think about it, when I think about the superhero movies and I compare the overall world building or character growth or, philosophical undertones, I compare that with some of my favorite anime. I mean, they pale in comparison. You
Yeah.
know, the
Right.
fact is they're just really big budget. They have a lot of awesome special effects, a lot of really likable characters,
Hmm.
but in my opinion, at least, there isn't the same depth. And so I think that anime, if it can grab a foothold in that, like it already started, like it's already started to in the U.S. I mean, it can
Yeah.
really explode because people will have these superheroes and power systems and stuff that they love, these massive battles and really cool animation scenes and special effects and all that kind of stuff. But they'll also get a continuous, coherent storyline with an end game,
Yeah.
plus intricate backstories. You get betrayal, you get these awesome plans and strategies. It's on a different level, in my opinion.
I agree. Like, probably anime has introduced me to some of the most complex characters that I've ever met, and I've seen tons of superhero movies. Like, that's 100%. And the storylines are just, they're the twists and turns that come around. You've never seen it coming. And I
Right.
think that's one thing that superhero movies are really lacking. Some of them have done a pretty decent job with having at least a nice little twist in there, but they're just movies. It's everything that you're just trying to fit within that 1 to 2 or 3, depending on how big the movie is, 2 to 3 hour time slot. Whereas anime, I know they make anime movies, and usually that's just like a quick little arc that they want to just make into a movie. But the anime as a whole, you just go on this roller coaster of emotions throughout the whole show. I mean, depending on which one you watch, you could be happy at 1 minute and thinking that it's all over, and the next thing you know, somebody's got their hand through another person's chest that you really loved and your favorite character's dead. And you're just like, what now? What
For sure.
now? So
Right.
it's, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think the Marvel franchise has done it well just because they've had so many movies of the Avengers, and they all had their own standalone movies that you kind of built a connection to that character. Obviously, that's why a lot of people were upset. Spoiler alert, just for everybody. Spoiler alert, that Tony Stark died. I think that's why everybody was so upset when he died in Endgame. That
Right.
you had built such a connection to him because you had seen all the Iron Men, you had seen all of the Avengers. He had always been there, and then they took him
Right.
away at the end. And it's the same exact thing in anime, and it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where anime can play at your heartstrings and at your emotions, and it's not just one of those stupid little cartoons. Not saying that SpongeBob wasn't a great idea, but it is just one of those stupid cartoons where there's like no story. There's
Right.
there's nothing
It's
to
pretty
it.
mindless.
It's you sit your kids in front of the television and tell them not to get in trouble, and they just sit and watch SpongeBob. That's exactly what it
Right.
is. And that's
Right.
what SpongeBob really was created for, and it worked. And I think it's everybody here in the Western just in Western civilization can say, hey, that's SpongeBob is great for what it did. But if you want
Right.
something deeper, something with some sustenance, something that you're gonna walk away from and say, wow, I have got to see, I have to know what happens next, it's anime.
For sure. For sure. And another theme that I think would be very appealing to people in the West is anime has a lot of anime have a very strong theme of overcoming adversity, right?
Hmm.
Beating the odds.
Yeah,
These like underdog stories.
that's like
And
almost the underlying tale of all of Naruto.
right,
100%.
right,
That and friendship.
right. And like you look at popular like America loves an underdog story. It's
Hmm.
why we love March Madness. You
Yeah.
know, we love March Madness because we love the little guy beating the odds and taking
100%.
out a Titan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And anime has a lot of that. And I feel like because there is an end game and these stories are really long, most of them span several years. And so you grow to empathize with these characters and you feel like you're journeying with them, like I know people that love different sports anime and they'll tell me that it's like, like you almost feel like you're part of the team when you're watching. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You become attached to these characters and you love seeing them, overcome
Right.
different hurdles that appear in their journey.
And it's one of those
And
things that I think plays with what you kind of said. Like, it's almost a spinoff. You said, they're long. Some of these are long. Like, yeah, you could sit there and watch your few. Like, I don't even know how many episodes The Office has total. Maybe like 100 and something. Maybe not quite.
right,
Maybe just a little bit under. But we're talking about if you were to sit down and just watch Shippuden alone. You're
right,
watching like almost 300, 400 episodes alone.
right,
So
right.
this is not, if you're talking about you want something that you can sit down and watch for a while, then absolutely, like, the anime is the way to go. I know some of them started to get to the point where, like, when they adapt from the manga to the anime, they try and shove a lot of stuff into one episode and make them a little bit shorter, maybe like 12 episode seasons. If they can do a good job and get away with it, then go ahead. But for a majority of the other, like, top tier anime that a lot of people talk about and a lot of people put on like their top fives, they have like 100 or plus episodes easily.
Right. Right.
And that's just one of the things. It's like story building and storytelling. It's literally so good that it to me is a deeper story than some of the TV shows make.
Right, for sure. And another thing I wanted to point out in this podcast was one of my favorite aspects of anime in general is you have real world issues that are brought to light and in different anime, right? It's like
Yeah.
in One Piece, which is my favorite anime, been going on for 20 years. I mean, it's a massive story. Everything in, like, the world is massive. Their different factions and things are really fleshed out. But I mean, there are ideas of like slavery
Yeah.
and abuse of power as a king and corruption in government. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
there are themes of racism, and you know what I mean? It's like there are these themes that are generally really sensitive and really serious in the real world that are made apparent, and it's really cool to see those played out while following, some of your favorite characters' journey.
Yeah,
It's a really
yeah.
interesting dynamic. And it's one of the things that I love about anime. I
Yeah.
love seeing different takes on, what corruption in government is, or what does it mean to actually be a racist, So it's really cool.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was just gonna say, like, for you in One Piece, like, fishmen, basically that the whole rest of the world hated them just because they were different.
Right,
It's
exactly.
basically
Just
the
'cause they
world
looked
against
different.
fishmen. Yeah, just because they look different. They were fishmen.
Right.
And then you could almost go the same thing on and Naruto, how it was just prejudice because a lot of the people from the Leaf Village were, scared at one point and basically isolated and pushed out the Uchiha clan because of their strength and their optical prowess. So, you see it everywhere. And it takes a certain person to really discern and to really dissect that. You have to really be paying attention to it. Now, sometimes they're a parent and just come out and say, yeah, they were prejudiced against us because we were different. Like, they'll let you be known, but sometimes you have to sit there and it really makes you think. And I think that's one thing that you can enjoy, that a lot of people could probably enjoy and get around with anime is like, like we said with SpongeBob, it's not mindless. You don't just sit there and watch them do stupid stuff and be funny. There can be funny moments, but there are moments that you can really think at the same time. One of the best anime we could probably point out to anybody that loves to use their brain and do chess pieces with it is, Death Note. You know,
Right.
the mental battle between L and Light. You know, if it's really something to behold, and I can use that really right here. You know, me and you, we've both got a buddy. You know, you lived with him at one point. I won't use his name in this, but you know, the one I tried to get him into anime, and the first thing I showed him was Death Note, and because
Right.
it wasn't just one of those crazy action adventure stories, and he loved it. He
Right.
loved it because just what it did with your mind, you know, it
Right.
made you think. It was like, you know, CIS, or no, not CIS, it was
Right.
CSI. Yeah, it's like, you know, all of
Right.
these shows that people love to watch on television. Hawaii Five-0, something that's got like, there's a bad guy and then there's a guy trying to figure out how to catch him, you know. But
Right.
even then, because it's anime, it's got a twist to it. So that's just
Right.
what made it. And then of course I showed him the next one was Attack on Titan. And me and you
Right.
both know that can just catch anybody just
Oh, it's
because
amazing.
of what you said. So we could sit here and list all sorts of anime that you need to watch, but there are some that if you have a friend and you're trying to introduce him to it, that are better to use than others, just because they
Right.
get you hooked so fast. You know, if you tried
Right.
to show somebody, you know, original Naruto, I don't know if they would really get hooked as fast because it can start
Right.
off kind of slow.
Right.
But there are some that if you can get them hooked, because I always tell people, like I kind of prefaced early in the show, if you can make it past like the first 2 or 3 introductory episodes, you're golden. You're golden.
Yeah. It really comes down to people just need to, I mean, they just need to get past the fact that it's anime. If you go into it
Yeah.
with a mindset that, you know, this isn't just because it's anime, it's not different or weird, then I think people will embrace it.
I think
It's
people
like,
can't get past the name anime. As soon as
Right.
they hear it, they're just like, "Oh, yeah, that's that weird weeb shit." Literally,
Exactly,
like that's
exactly.
what they think, and it's like, well, you know, technically they could say the same thing about us, you know, the Western world watching like SpongeBob. They're like, "Oh, that's that dumbed down shit." Like that's
Right.
meaningless. You know, it's just one of, and you know, there were kids that loved to watch Adventure Time. Excuse me? That was
Right.
that was like a cartoon on acid. Why would you like? I understand just watching that for entertainment reasons, but if you want to watch something that's entertaining and can stimulate your mind a little bit and make you like sit there and wonder and go along with a story, why would you be so quick to turn your nose up at anime? I just don't understand it. And I think
Right.
something that does push them away too is like the fact that they do have to kind of multitask if they don't watch it, you know, dubbed, if they watch it sub.
Right. Right.
Somebody asked me one time, he was like, how do you watch this in sub? He's like, you don't, like, you have to flip back and forth between subtitles and what's happening. I'm like, after a while you just kind of get trained to it. It's not as hard as you
honestly,
think. It's really
never in
not.
never in my life have I ever thought that it was difficult or I was missing something.
Yeah,
Never.
I
You know?
but even then, you could always tell them, it's like, look, if you don't want to read, I mean, I don't recommend it, but then just watch the dub version. Like
Right,
I don't
right.
think it's as good just from like a sound perspective, but the story's still the same. It's still
Right.
the same story, just, you know, it's just going to be in American. You know, it's going to be in English instead of it's going to be in Japanese. So I think that's one of the things that's just hard for, you know, the Western world to wrap their brain around, and it does come back really to what you said about, you know, really America in general not wanting to just embrace other cultures like that.
Right. Right. For sure. And I think it's started to change. You know,
Yeah.
we're going in a good direction.
I agree.
And I think that the more that the word can be spread and the more that people can be exposed to it, and like you were saying earlier, I wanted to, you know, how there are certain anime that are really good gateway anime.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Death Note or Attack on Titan, and it's because they're kind of, you know, they're devoid of the anime tropes that turns everyone off. You know,
Yes.
they don't have these, you know, big titty anime girls all over the place half naked. You know what I mean? They don't have
That's a damn shame. Wait.
But then, you know what I mean? Like they don't
Yeah.
have that. That's not the
Yeah.
emphasis.
No, I
The
know.
emphasis isn't on that. The emphasis isn't on, oh, power of friendship defeats all. You know, it's these really intriguing storylines where they feel more real
Hmm.
because characters that you become attached to die. You know, like
Yeah.
they'll actually die. It's not like everyone gets to live and the
Happily
story
ever
goes on.
after. Yeah.
Right.
Like, I want
It
everybody
feels
to
more real.
understand. I want everybody to understand. If you're listening to this and you have not watched Death Note, I hate to tell you, it's not a spoiler, but it's not a happily ever after. I can promise you that.
Oh yeah, no.
It's not a happily
No.
ever after.
And honestly, like I can't think of an anime, like a battle, I guess, action anime that is all happy endings. You know, like like along the journey, there are definitely things that happen that are like everyone doesn't make it through. You
Right.
know,
Yes,
and so
100%. Like, the
yeah,
ending might be how you want it to be, but that doesn't necessarily mean it was a happily like a happily ever after pure story, okay? No.
right,
Like, people are dead. I'm sorry, okay?
right,
I don't know. I think that's just outside of anime, bringing in magic and bringing in obviously certain different powers and stuff. It's almost a more realistic story to believe than some of the stuff that the Western world is showing on their screen. Like SpongeBob.
right,
None of that stuff is believable, of course,
right,
but and mostly because it doesn't have a story in general. But even in
right,
anime, so what if they have special powers or they have magic that they can use? These stories are just as captivating than any TV show. I think
oh,
that's
for
one of
sure,
the things that I really want to hit home as we start to wrap up this episode. And I think it was a very good opening episode from both of us. I really do. I just think it's
for
one of those
sure,
things where it's like, if people could look past the fact that it is animated and that it is in Japanese, you might find one of the best stories that you'll, have ever watched, or something better than you've even read.
right, right. I think the major thing I want to drive home is like don't close yourself off to something without giving it a chance. You
Right.
know,
Right.
don't shut yourself off to an entire medium of thousands and thousands of brilliant people and brilliant stories and brilliant teams. Don't shut yourself off from that without seeing what it can offer. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and don't. But I just think that um, we need to get away from this hesitancy to foreign things. And once we can get
Hmm.
past that, if you give it a shot, you get past it, you give it you're like an honest go, and you don't like it, okay, whatever,
Yeah.
no problem. But I think that I'm actually really confident that if anyone gives it an honest try, there's
Hmm.
something in anime that they will really enjoy and will surpass what they thought anime could offer them.
Yeah. And I think with that, that was a good closing argument. Or not really an argument, that was just really a good closing statement. So with that, I think we're going to wrap up today's episode. I want to thank every one of you for tuning in and listening to today's podcast episode. We are not going to announce right now like what days these come out on,
Right.
if they come out every week or not, because right now, just with how everything is in the world, everybody has to kind of be flexible. So, but we do want to thank you for listening to episode 1, and no, this is not the one and only episode we will ever do. So
Right.
just, we will be back.
Yeah, I think the plan, at least right now, and we're going to be flexible. It's not going to be a rigid schedule, but the plan right now is to do an episode once a week. Don't know
Yeah.
what day yet. Don't know if it'll be the same day every week or not.
Right. Right.
But just do one of these episodes once a week. That way, we can gather weebs of all areas, race, kind
Weebs
under one
unite.
umbrella, and we can discuss things that we really enjoy.
Yeah.
Things that bring us a lot of happiness and enjoyment. And if that's what we can achieve, then we're doing our job.
Yep. And so with that, thank you everybody from myself and Jonah for listening to today's episode of Anime Society, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Alright, give me some paper, boy.